Welcome to the grid computing tutorials. In this tutorial we are taking a look at digital certificates which we need to identify ourselves and to access computers on the grid. First, what is a grid certificate? Please welcome Alice and Bob. Alice and Bob would like to exchange files. So they meet in person and hand over the files to ensure that Bob really receives the files and Bob can make sure that he really receives the files from Alice. Now, Alice and Bob not always have to meet personally, so they would like to exchange files electronically. How can they still verify the identity of each other? For this they rely on public key cryptography and a trusted third party, a so-called certificate authority. This certificate authority issues digital certificates to Alice and Bob in a standardized format called X509. With the help of these certificates and private keys only known to Alice and Bob, they can encrypt their communication and also ensure that only they themselves can read the data they are exchanging. A certificate authority now can also issue certificates to computers, which is a basic functionality used in grid computing. Every computer and every user in a computing grid has a private key and a certificate to encrypt the communication and ensure the authenticity of the communication partners, no matter whether they are humans or machines. If you would like now to participate in and access computing grids, you usually get your certificate from a national grid initiative and their certificate authority. The steps to obtain a certificate usually depends on the country, but is typically based on Linux environments and first requires you to create a private key and certificate request. If you are using a test environment and a simple certificate authority from the Globus toolkit, you can issue a certificate request with the command grid cert request. Enter your full name and a secure passphrase which is used to protect your private key. This creates the certificate request. And now you can follow the steps shown on the screen. Alice now has created her private key and her certificate request and sends it to the certificate authority. In many cases you have to personally visit a representative of your certificate authority who verifies your identity. After this verification, you will receive your digital certificate and can now start to enter the world of computing grids. To verify that your digital certificate really works, you have to usually rename the certificate file you receive from your certificate authority to usercert.pam and move it to the Globus folder which you find in your home directory. There the Globus toolkit will search for and finally find your certificate and also your private key. With the command grid proxy init, we will now initiate a so-called grid proxy, to which you delegate for a certain time the right to access remote resources in your name. We can verify that we have a valid grid proxy with the command grid proxy info, and finally also can destroy existing grid proxies with the command grid proxy destroy. If you now would like to access grid resources from your Windows-based systems with applications like GSI, SSH term, and your organization does not operate other grid proxy tools like MyProxy, you have to create a P12 certificate archive from your private key, your grid certificate, and the certificate of your certificate authority. For this, we now use OpenSSL to combine all the required files to a P12 certificate archive with the command you see now on the screen. After issuing this command, copy the created P12 file to your Windows machine and you are ready for the next tutorials on how to access grid resources with GSI SSH term from your computers with the Microsoft operating system. Or continue with the Linux tutorials on how to use grid computing from Linux.